Hello everyone, in this video I am going to show you how to render your scenes faster. Even if you have an old system, don't worry, after watching this video you will be able to render anything much faster. First we will talk about the render settings in render properties in Cycles. But it's not just the settings that matter. In order for you to be able to render faster, you need to use some tricks and techniques. I will mention a few of them. Finally, I will tell you how you can render faster if you have an old GPU that can't handle rendering tasks. Okay. I already have this mountain scene, and if I decide to render this scene, it will take 9 hours. This is terrible, right? But there are very easy ways we can reduce the render time. It is important that we decide at what resolution we will render this scene. This will have a direct impact on the render time. The lower the resolution you use, the faster the scene will render. But the quality of the scene is also important, and try to render your scenes at a suitable resolution. So let's go to the render properties, and the first thing we need to do is change the device from CPU to GPU. Depending on the power of your GPU, the render time will decrease. Of course, if your GPU is old and Cycles doesn't support it, Blender will still use the CPU for rendering. I also unchecked the denoiser because I prefer to use the compositing denoiser. Here we have options that are almost the same as in the compositing denoiser. Now change the noise threshold from 0.01 to 0.1. This will reduce the render time, but it is better to try different numbers for your scenes, because sometimes if you increase the noise threshold, the quality of the image you will render will be reduced. And here we have the render samples, which are set to 4096 by default. This is one of the most important factors that can affect the render time of a scene. Personally, I think 4096 samples is way more than we need. I find that for almost all projects, using anywhere between 64 and 512 samples is sufficient. For this particular scene, I want to use 128 samples. The next thing you need to pay attention to are light passes. You should adjust these numbers based on the materials you are using. If you use higher numbers, the lighting calculations will become more complex. Therefore, the render time will also increase, and vice versa. I set all of this to 2, but I prefer to use 4 transparent passes because in this scene I have used a lot of trees that have transparent shaders. It's always a good idea to switch to render mode after making these changes and make sure nothing strange has happened. Maybe I should set this to 10. You can uncheck reflective and refractive caustics. This also can help, and I also recommend turning on Fast GI. This is also a useful option and can help you to render faster. And you can turn on Simplify as well. You can apply limits on the quality of textures and the number of subdivisions and particles to reduce the render time. Of course, I prefer not to use this. Since we don't want to use rendering denoiser, we need to use the compositing denoiser. So we need to go to View Layers, Passes, Data, and Enable Denoising Data. So let's render the scene and see how much the render time has decreased. In 1 minute and 15 seconds. Now we need to go to the compositing section, activate the user nodes checkbox, add a denoise node, connect denoising normal to normal and connect denoising albedo to albedo. Blender takes a long time to denoise. However, we can go to the sidebar, options, and use GPU compositor to make Blender work a little faster in compositing. Let's learn how to render volumetrics very quickly. I have this VDB file here, and this is the material that I have created for this file. If I do all the things I told you to do render faster, I still have to wait 10 minutes to render. So what can we do? First, we need to go to the material properties and change the step rate to 0.1. Then we go back to the render properties, and here we open this menu and change the render step rate to 0.1 as well. This is a bit hard to explain, but in general, it makes volumetric files render with higher quality. But this also makes us have to wait longer for rendering. So what should we do? The max steps is set to 1024 by default. We just need to decrease it. For example, I use 8 steps for most projects. And now you see that I can render this in only 1 minute. To add fog, clouds, and atmosphere, you probably use 3D volumetric objects, but you can use 2D planes. Let me show you an example. Here I'm using a cube and a principled volume to add atmosphere. But we can add a plane instead. Rotate it, scale it, and create a new material for it. Now I can add a gradient texture, press Ctrl T, add a color ramp, connect factor to factor, set interpolation to ease, and move the black color stop closer to the white color stop. Delete the principal BSDF, add an emission shader, add a transparent BSDF, add a mix shader, connect emission and transparent BSDF to the mix shader, and connect color to factor. We should connect this to the bottom socket and connect this to the top socket. If you are using Eevee render engine, go to material properties and set render method to blend it. Now we can easily control the strength and color. When you use procedural materials, bake your textures to render faster. Let me show you an example. I have to wait 4 minutes for this to render. But what if I bake the AO map? First, I need to add an image texture. I use 4K resolution, check 32-bit float, and create a new image. I need to connect AO to surface. I go to render properties, uncheck the denoiser, set max samples to 1, open the bake menu, set bake type to emit, and bake my texture. Now I have baked this, I just need to save it. If you want your file to be very small, use JPEG file format. Now I use image texture and connect color to factor. Now let's render the scene again and see how long it takes. This scene only takes 1 minute to render, which is 4 times faster than before. I told you these tips so that you can render your scenes faster. But let's say you have a very old GPU. What should you do now? Well, we have a great option, Google Colab. Colab gives you free but limited access to the T4 GPU. The T4 GPU is a very powerful GPU with 16 GB of VRAM. If you want to learn how to use Google Colab, watch this video from the 5 Minutes Blender channel. He will explain to you how to use Colab in 5 minutes. I'm just going to do a render with Colab right now so you can see how fast Colab is.